Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Jarrell Miller, Anthony Joshua, New York in June. It's the fight nobody was calling for. The fight nobody was asking for until recently, when it became a reality that it was a sort of contingency option that was going to be picked up because there was no luck finding other opponents because money became an issue. And it's continued to be an issue for Anthony Joshua, him not wanting to pay opponents and opponents not wanting to take perhaps what they're commercially worth, but regardless of the rights and wrongs of who's been wanting what in negotiations, the top fights for Anthony Joshua have not been made, and Dillian Whyte has effectively said that a deal with Joshua is dead, that he hasn't been getting offers that are commensurate with his value, and they haven't been serious offers, and it's been too little too late. So what we're looking at now is Anthony Joshua, the unified champion, the biggest name in the heavyweight division, having to put his tail between his legs, abandon a Wembley date to fight Jarrell Miller in the United States for a fight no one really wanted. Even Joshua himself, in the poll that he put up recently saying, who would you want to see me fight? Jarrell Miller wasn't even featured in the poll. Even on December 22nd, when Dillian Whyte knocked out Derek Chisora, Anthony Joshua said, Dillian Whyte, you're the backup, Deontay Wilder is the first. There was no mention of Jarrell Miller. But Jarrell Miller, the backup option, is going to get a shot at a heavyweight title against Anthony Joshua. This is the way that it's going to go. This is what's going to happen now. And really, it's quite an incredible situation because they've had several months to make a fight for Joshua for April 13th. Remember, there was the big announcement several months ago, Joshua staying home. He was going to have the two fights at Wembley. Povetkin happened, and then there was the April 13th date. And sure, the Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury fight, that gave those two fighters the option to rematch each other, given the controversial nature of the result from that fight. But money has been ever present in negotiations. It's been very publicly played out about offers, people not wanting to negotiate, people wanting too much. But the result has been that date has got ever closer and nothing has really happened. There has been no top-tier opponent confirmed for Wembley. And in my view, it's hugely embarrassing to have to abandon the only date that you're going to have at that venue all year. It's a bit of a facepalm. And leaving Wembley, which we were just hearing a week ago was a 75% chance they were keeping the date, to now Eddie Hearn saying it's very unlikely they keep the date, and even if Dillian Whyte did fight Joshua, they'd have to abandon the date and fight in May or June, because Dillian Whyte wants a 14-week camp. That's what Whyte has said himself. But leaving Wembley, it kind of signals the end of the stadium fights, unless it's a very big fight. Anthony Joshua is being forced in a position here to abandon the plans that he had in place. The star of the heavyweight division, the guy that brings in the most money in the heavyweight division, and he's having to give up this big date and probably leaving money on the table to take a fight with Jarrell Miller that probably earns less overall. Sure, the gate prices might be higher in Madison Square Garden, all that sort of stuff, ticket prices higher, the gate probably similar to a Wembley crowd if they can get a sellout. But you actually look at the situation, there's no American pay-per-view money there. It's on DAZN. DAZN isn't going to be bringing in $75 per pay-per-view because there is no pay-per-view. It's a subscription service. This is more a showcase fight now. If they take this, if it's announced publicly that Joshua is fighting Miller, it's an introduction to the United States. And how successful it will be, well, that remains to be seen. I'm not really talking about the fight so much in this video. I'm more talking about the circumstances of how we got here, because come on, this is not a good look for Anthony Joshua. There's actually some reputational damage and a bit of a hit to his reputation from what's going on here. And I'm sure there will be a lot of people who are weighing in now, hitting the dislike button and sort of saying, oh, Joshua's been forced into this, others wouldn't take the fight. Well, it's a two-way street. He knew what it would take to get some of the fights made, didn't want to give up the offers because we hear he's in control of the purse, he's in control of the offers that go up. No fights are made, and so that's really on him as much as it is on Fury, Wilder, and more latterly, Dillian Whyte. And Dillian Whyte was the backup option. And the backup option is saying, you're being cheap, you're not giving me the money. And regardless of what's fair for Dillian Whyte, because I think 40% what he was asking for is kind of, a bit ridiculous right now, because I don't believe he is worth that. But regardless, you haven't got that fight. You had the date. You haven't got it done. Months to set a fight. Money's becoming an issue. And there's a bit of a stench around Anthony Joshua right now that it's all about money, that greed is coming into the conversation a bit too much. And I think there's a perception from what I'm seeing and hearing from some fans online, sure not all fans, but there is more of an image now that Anthony Joshua is just all about the money, and that, money is becoming an issue in his career because there's just too much of it. He doesn't want to give up enough of it to get some of these meaningful fights. And this is actually becoming a bit of an issue now. He could have fought Deontay Wilder last year, couldn't get a deal done, and ultimately money was part of the reason that they didn't get the deal done. And now we've heard there's no silly deals, there's no 50-50 for Tyson Fury or Deontay Wilder, so those fights didn't get done. Hasn't got a deal done with Dillian Whyte. So now we're being served up a fight that no one really wanted to see, Jarrell Miller. A guy who we just don't really know how good he is. I'm sure a very tiny percentage of fans had that as their first choice. And I can't, believe that it's going to be a bigger fight than a Wembley fight, and not at least in terms of exposure. Wembley fight would have been bigger. There's no pay-per-view in the United States. There's no guarantee that the sales on pay-per-view in the United Kingdom will be as strong as they normally are for a Joshua fight, because the time difference will probably mean that it's on at a time when many fans may not be watching. So there's no guarantees that the economics of this fight stack up to what could have been a near sellout at Wembley versus, one of these other opponents that I've already mentioned. And that's not to go into the fight, because it could end up being a very tough fight for Anthony Joshua. We don't know how good Jarrell Miller is, but it is a fight that no one was really calling for. Jarrell Miller has been treading water recently against guys like Bogdan Dinu and Thomas Adamek. He's entering a title fight with a unified champion, a voluntary defense, on the back of those fights. Come on. The fact that they recently had to do a promotional tour in the United Kingdom for Jarrell Miller to try, up his profile, it tells you that his profile has been in the toilet. He's been losing credibility, losing respect with fans, because he's been so overtly trying to eke his way to a world title. And it looks like he's succeeded, that he's going to get the title shot without taking that extra step many expected to see against the top 10 or top 15 opponent before getting that title shot. Could have fought Kubrat Pulev, turned it down because of money, and also didn't want to go to Bulgaria. So I do believe that some of the sheen has come away from Brand Joshua, because it's been made to look a little bit silly in this situation. They had this date. They haven't delivered an opponent worthy of that date. I think the stadium days are all but over, except for the big opponents. So you think about all the time, effort, money, the planning, logistics, everything that's been going on behind the scenes for this Wembley date for some time. It'll all go up in smoke if they abandon it and go to fight Jarrell Miller. For me, it's a bit of a PR facepalm for Anthony Joshua, because that narrative of Joshua fights anyone and can fill a stadium, completely up in smoke. Whether you like it or not, it has to be a certain level of opponent. And for those people who are really getting salty in the comments because I've dared to actually speak about Anthony Joshua and this being a bit of an embarrassment, because this whole situation has turned into being a bit embarrassing, well, come on, you need to get real. This isn't a fight people wanted. Some people are only warming up to it now, but it is what it is. No Wembley fight, no Dillian Whyte, no Deontay Wilder, no Tyson Fury served up Jarrell Miller, the fight no one was calling for. Think about it. And I'm sure Barry Hearn, he doesn't mind, because he's all about the money. He's already said before, he doesn't care if Joshua never faces Deontay Wilder and if he keeps doing what he's doing. And boxing, and the boxing fan, you and I, will be the poorer for it if the money-first attitude keeps prevailing in these situations. And, there's no easy solution, and I'm not necessarily saying that he has to give up all his commercial value, but something's got to give. Because if he continues fighting guys no one wants to see, the majority of boxing fans aren't really that interested in, then his brand will ultimately suffer in the long run. It will. It's a reality. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.